Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a single, mind-bending psychological principle that somehow unites the humble beginnings of a massive coffee giant with the absolute near-death resurrection of the world's biggest toy company. We are talking about Starbucks as the ultimate concept pioneer and Lego as the greatest recovery story you've probably ever heard. Now, on the surface, you might think these two companies have absolutely nothing in common, but the secret to their massive global dominance isn't a better roasted coffee bean or a sharper plastic brick. It's all about mastering the psychology of belonging. To really understand how this works, we've got to jump back to the 1980s. Back then, Starbucks wasn't this massive empire with a green mermaid on literally every street corner. It was just a simple, pretty basic company selling roasted coffee beans in bags. That's it. But an employee named Howard Schultz had this radical new vision for what the company could actually be. The original founders? Well, they completely rejected him. They just wanted to stick to selling beans. So Schultz actually left Starbucks to test his bold idea all on his own. He pitched his concept, and get this, only one single investor listened, writing him a check for a measly $1,000 to test an idea that would literally go on to reshape the world. So what exactly was that radical idea? Well, it all stemmed from a business trip Schultz took over to Italy. While he was there, he noticed something really strange happening in the local espresso bars. People weren't just rushing in, grabbing a quick hit of caffeine and rushing right back out. No, they were staying, they were talking, laughing, catching up with their neighbors. It was a real community. And right there, Schultz had this massive realization. Coffee wasn't the actual product. Connection was. He realized that if you just sell a drink, you're just a commodity. But if you sell a space for human connection, you become a destination. He brought this completely radical concept back to America, calling it the third place. Schultz eventually scraped together enough cash to buy Starbucks itself, and he completely transformed it based on this exact definition. He didn't want to just sling coffee. He wanted to sell a feeling. The third place is not your home, and it's not your workplace. It's this reliable, comforting, welcoming third space in your life where you just feel like you belong. He was selling routine, comfort, and most importantly, a profound sense of status and community. And that brings us to the absolute core psychological thesis of our explainer today. People don't buy products, they buy versions of themselves. Just let that sink in for a second. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is actually paying $7 just for the liquid inside that cup. Actually, scratch that. It's not even about the drink at all. They are paying for an identity. They're paying for the feeling of being the kind of person who starts their morning with a premium Starbucks cup in their hand. This is exactly why competitors over the years could easily copy the drinks, but they could never, ever copy the brand. Starbucks had completely mastered identity. But what happens when a beloved brand completely loses its grip on that exact identity? Let's fast forward to 2003 and look at the absolute titan of toys, Lego. While Starbucks was out there mastering human connection and belonging, Lego had forgotten it entirely. The company that had literally built childhood dreams for over 70 years was suddenly $800 million in debt, and they were bleeding a terrifying $1 million every single day. They were right on the edge of total collapse. And honestly, nobody knew if they'd even survive the year. So how on earth did they get there? Well, back in 1932, a Danish carpenter named Ole Kirk Christensen founded the company with a super simple formula, leg godt, which just means play well. Give kids some basic bricks and just let their imaginations run wild. 0 screens required. By the 90s, they were a massive global brand. But then, the internet and video games arrived, and leadership completely panicked. They expanded wildly into theme parks, clothing lines, TV shows, you name it. And the result? A total supply chain collapse and massive warehouses overflowing with toys that absolutely nobody wanted to buy. Desperate for survival in 2004, Lego hires this 35-year-old outsider named Jürgen Vic Knut Storp to be their CEO. Now, he wasn't a toy guy at all. He was a former McKinsey consultant. And when he walked into the Lego headquarters, he didn't obsess over the new clothing lines or try to fix the theme parks. Instead, he asked this one ultimate, game-changing question. Who actually buys Lego? It sounds so incredibly obvious, right? But the executives sitting in that room realized they didn't really know who their core customer was anymore. The answer to Knut Storp's question revealed a completely massive oversight. Lego had been bending over backwards, doing absolute gymnastics trying to capture the attention of modern 6-year-olds. But their most passionate, reliable, and high-spending customers, they were actually adults. They discovered this group called AFOLs, adult fans of Lego. We're not talking about 6-year-olds here. We're talking about engineers, architects, and designers in their 30s and 40s, dropping hundreds of dollars to build things their own kids probably weren't even allowed to touch. They had built these massive online communities and were creating incredibly complex models. LEGO had been completely ignoring them while frantically chasing after a market that just didn't care. Knudstorp realized right then and there that they had to stop chasing the market and go right back to the community that already found belonging in their brand. So he executed 3 brutal, highly decisive moves. Step 1, he cut 50% of LEGO's product lines, just immediately slashed them. Step 2, he drastically reduced the number of unique pieces they were manufacturing. And step 3, instead of trying to hopelessly compete with video games and pop culture, he decided they were going to partner with them. Let's zoom in on that second decision for a second because it's absolutely crucial. During their panicked expansion phase, LEGO had started manufacturing over 13,000 unique brick shapes just to try and make their sets feel flashy and new. It was a complete logistical nightmare that was actively bankrupting the company. Knudstorp took a hatchet to that number, slashing it nearly in half, bringing it down to just 7,000 unique pieces. He boldly chose simplicity over complexity, literally forcing the company to return to its core identity. Basic blocks driven by imagination, rather than relying on a wildly expensive new mold for every single toy. And then came the partnerships. This is where Knudstorp's third decision just skyrocketed. Instead of fighting for attention against massive movies and video games, LEGO embedded itself right inside them. They launched huge blockbuster collaborations with Star Wars, Harry Potter, Batman, and Indiana Jones. By the mid-2000s, LEGO Star Wars was their single biggest product line. This was a monumental shift in strategy. LEGO was no longer this dusty legacy brand trying to fight off modern pop culture. Through these partnerships, LEGO actually became pop culture. But hands down, the absolute smartest move they made to really lean into their community was launching the LEGO Ideas platform. They spun up a website where fans, specifically those adult AFOLs we talked about, could submit their own custom designs. If the community voted a design up to 10,000 votes, LEGO would actually manufacture it, giving the fan creator a 1% royalty on all sales. The financial genius of this model is just staggering. LEGO essentially turned their most passionate customers into a massive, totally free R&D department. The fans felt this deep, incredible sense of ownership and belonging. LEGO's design costs absolutely plummeted, and the products were 100% guaranteed to sell because, well, the community had already voted for them. And the ultimate reward for leaning entirely into this community identity, that arrived in 2014 with the LEGO Movie. Let's be real. This wasn't just a movie about toys. It was essentially a wildly entertaining 100-minute advertisement. But it was so brilliantly crafted, with so much genuine love and respect for the fans, that audiences enthusiastically paid to go watch it. It raked in a staggering $468 million at the box office. And off the back of that cultural phenomenon alone, LEGO's physical toy sales surged by 25% in that exact same year. So here is the absolute crucial point. LEGO didn't get some massive government bailout. They weren't bought out or rescued by a larger corporation. They saved themselves by returning to their core community. And today, well, the results absolutely speak for themselves. The company is now worth over $9 billion. They completely surpassed Mattel and Hasbro to become the undisputed largest toy company in the whole world. And incredibly, to put things in perspective, they are actually more profitable per employee than Apple. Yeah, you heard that right. All right, so what are the big takeaways from this incredible turnaround? Lesson 1, your best customers are already right there with you. LEGO almost died chasing new kids while totally ignoring the adults who already found a sense of belonging with them. Before you try to reach 1 million new people, serve the ones you already have deeply. Lesson 2, complexity kills businesses. Adding more products and endless options always feels like growth in the moment. But as we clearly saw with LEGO's 13,000 brick shapes, it's often just really expensive noise. Going back to basics is what ultimately saved them. Moving right along to Lesson 3, turn your community into a marketing engine. The LEGO Ideas platform created an army of brand ambassadors who felt personally invested in the company's success. When your community literally builds your product, that isn't just marketing anymore. That is a bona fide superpower. And finally, Lesson 4, the best advertisement doesn't feel like an advertisement at all. The LEGO Movie proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you genuinely entertain your audience and honor their identity, they will literally line up and pay you to watch your ads. Which really leaves us with one final vital question to ask ourselves today. Are you just selling a product, or are you actively building a third place for your community's identity? Whether you're brewing a cup of coffee or snapping together a few plastic bricks, the businesses that survive and conquer the world are always the ones that make their customers feel like they truly belong. Take a hard look at what you do and ask yourself how you can build that community today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If this sparked a new idea for you, be sure to subscribe, because next week we are looking at an absolutely fascinating story about a company that was rejected by literally every investor on Earth, and then somehow, against all odds, became worth $100 billion.